Yeah.
Is an awesome God he
got 'em.
reigns from heaven above with wisdom, power, and love. Our God is an awesome God.
Hey friends, welcome back to, guess what it is? Chaotic Serenity. That's right, you got it. So what I want to talk to you guys about today is forgiveness and making amends, and how it's important for us to keep short records. But what I mean by that is, if we've wronged someone, we need to make it right quickly. We don't need to let that ledger of people we need to make apologies to get longer and longer and longer. All right, so I want to talk to you guys today about a specific incident that something that I did wrong, and something that I really wanted to apologize for, but I wasn't able to for quite a while. So I'm going to take you guys back to probably my mid 20s. This would have been the early 2000s, right? So I was living in a home. I wasn't married, bachelor, and I had a couple of roommates, right? One of these roommates in particular, I was pretty close with. We worked together, we hung out together all the time, and he treated me pretty well. This guy's name was Jeremy. Well, I'm trying to figure out how in depth I want to go with this story, but I'll keep it simple, right? Keep it simple. So, a friend of mine, not Jeremy, another friend of mine, we had gone out to the local bar one night, and we were having a good old time, like people do at the bar, right? There were some things going on with Jeremy that I was a little bit upset about. There were some things going on in regards to rent money, and rent money not being paid on time, and some other things that were going on kind of behind the scenes that caused me to have a little bit of ill will towards my friend Jeremy. So my other friends and I were coming home from the bar, and it was late. It was probably 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning, and we came home, and this guy, my roommate Jeremy, was there, and he was asleep, presumably asleep, because his door was shut and everything was quiet in the house. Well, sometimes when you get intoxicated, you lose your inhibitions, and you do things and say things that you might not normally do under regular circumstances, right? Can I get an amen? Amen. So when I had come home with my friend, we were talking about my roommate Jeremy. We were saying some pretty negative things, not realizing that he was there. In fact, I'm pretty sure that we thought that he wasn't even home because he worked late. He was a bartender, and oftentimes he wouldn't even come home from work until 3 or 4 in the morning. So I think that that I had assumed that he wasn't even home. Anyways, long story short, I was speaking pretty harshly about him, saying some negative things, saying some inappropriate stuff, saying some really hurtful stuff. And lo and behold, not only was he home, but he was awake in his bedroom, and I was talking so loud because I was intoxicated that he was able to hear everything that I said. So he came out of his bedroom and said, "Look, if that's the way you feel, then I'll be gone tomorrow morning." So next morning I get up and go to work, and when I come home, he's gone. All of his stuff is gone, and he just dipped. He left. And in hindsight, I don't blame him, because I said some really hurtful things to this guy. Okay, now let's jump ahead. So I ended up getting into this program called Celebrate Recovery. Some of you know about. I've talked about it before. And in this program, there is there's this thing that we do called an inventory, right? This inventory has to do with just taking a look at things that we've done, people that we've hurt, and just kind of examining ourselves. and making a list of people that we need to apologize to. There's more that's involved than just that, but I'm going to keep this simple so that we can keep the video moving. So, anyways, on this list of people that I had wronged, that I still needed to make apologies to for things that I had done, this guy Jeremy was at the top of my list. And when I did this inventory, this was probably, I don't know, 4 years ago, 5 years ago. So relatively recent in the grand scheme of things. So I needed to make an apology to this guy Jeremy, and God really placed it in my heart and said, Adam, you need to make things right. Yeah, maybe this guy did some stuff that wasn't right. Maybe he wronged you, but regardless, you still played a role and you still said some really hurtful stuff. And Adam, you need to apologize and make things right. So I wanted to. I did. I started to look around trying to find this guy. Now, this guy Jeremy is not on Facebook. He's not a big social media techie kind of guy. And I searched and searched and searched all over for this guy. Couldn't find him. I got in touch with some of our old friends, asked them if they had any, contact information, email address, anything that I could use to reach out to this guy. Nothing. I was not able to come up with anything. I even did like some people search stuff, on Google, and could not come up with a way to find where this guy was at, much less contact him. So I started praying. I said, God, let me cross paths with this guy. It appears that I'm not going to be able to find out where he works or where he lives to reach out to him. So God, please just let me run into this guy at Kroger or something, So I prayed and prayed and prayed for quite a while. I asked friends to pray, and nothing. I hadn't come across this guy. So years go by, a couple years go by, and this part of the story is quite a bit more recent. This was probably about a year ago, what I'm about to say now. So my parents, they were living in this house. Right now, they're living in this house that used to be the house that I lived in with my roommates, right? So my dad owned this house. It was a rental property, basically, and now he has moved in with my mom, and they live in this rental property permanently. They've decided to live there. So they were going to get some refinancing done on the home, and they had to get it appraised, right? Now, they called up. I don't know where they got the number from. I don't know how they chose who they were going to use for an appraiser. But anyways, they call. They make an appointment with the appraiser. Hey, we're getting ready to refinance. Come take a look at the house. We need an appraisal done. So the appraiser comes out there, and it's a woman. And she comes in and she says hello. And so my mom is telling me this story. I'm not actually there. My mom is telling me this after the fact. So my mom says, Adam, it's interesting that this girl, when she came in, woman, she was a woman. When this woman came in, she was just acting a little bit weird, like something wasn't quite right, like she had something on her mind. She seemed a little bit distracted. And I'm thinking, okay, what does this have to do with anything? My mom, I love my mom. My mom likes to tell stories. And my mom goes into a story and then gets like off on this ADD rabbit hole tangent sort of a thing. I can be like that too sometimes. So I don't fault her for that. But on occasion, it's kind of like, okay, Mom, get to the point. You were telling me a story about something that happened at the grocery store, and now you're telling me about, something that has nothing to do with the grocery store that happened 2 years ago and whatever. Sometimes my mom kind of does that. So my mom's telling me this story about the appraiser and about how the appraiser is just acting a little bit off. And I'm thinking, where is this story going? What is my mom even talking about, So I'm listening. I'm paying attention. And my mom says, so here, listen, Adam, this is where it gets good. I said, okay, hit me with it. What's going on? So my mom says, all right, so after the appraisal was finished and the appraiser is getting ready to leave. She's about to walk out the door, and she turns back around and she says, "Can I ask you a question?" to my parents. And they're like, "Yeah, sure, go ahead, whatever." And so she says, "Do you have a son?" They said, "Yeah." She said, "Is his name Adam?" And they said, "Yeah." And now they're shocked. They're like, "How do you know we have a son, and how do you know his name is Adam?" And then this woman says, "I think that I met my husband in this house." And now my parents are like, "Whoa, what's really going on?" So, as it would turn out, the lady who was doing the appraisal on the house was this guy Jeremy's wife, soon to be ex-wife, but this was Jeremy's spouse, right? So my parents got to talking, and 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 this woman, I didn't know her very well. In fact, I think I had only met her once or twice before the incident happened where Jeremy left. Um, but yeah, I believe Jeremy met this lady at work, and and brought her back to the house to hang out. And I think I met her once or twice, possibly, but didn't think anything of it. So that's where we're at in this story, right? How crazy is that? Essentially, what we've got going on is that I have been praying for years and years and years for some way to get in contact with this guy Jeremy so that I can make an amends and apologize for what I've said and what I did to this guy, right? Unable to contact him, unable to find him. It's looking pretty hopeless and bleak, right? My parents, now we live in Metro Atlanta. I live in Metro Atlanta, so do my parents. They live right up the road, not too far away. In Metro Atlanta, there are probably thousands of people that do appraisals, right? Probably multiple thousands of people that do appraisals, okay? So, what are the chances that my parents would have picked up the phone book or Googled or whatever, called an appraiser, and it just so happens to be this guy Jeremy's wife that I've been looking to get in contact with for years and years and years and years? What are the chances? That's a God thing. That's God answering prayers in His time and how He does it, right? So my parents knew about the situation with me and Jeremy, and they also knew that I've been trying to get a hold of him. So my parents said, "Hey, look, do you think that you could, leave us your number? Maybe our son Adam could call you, and he would like to talk to Jeremy, and just Adam wants to ask you if it's okay to get Jeremy's phone number or contact info or whatever." So this woman says, "Yeah, fine, give him my number, whatever, it's all good." So it took me a while to muster up the courage to call her because I knew that once I called her, there weren't going to be any more excuses for me to not be able to reach out to this guy Jeremy and say what I needed to say and apologize. And I was anxious about that situation. I was nervous. I wasn't sure how Jeremy would react to my apology. At this point, it's something that has been on my heart for a long time, and the best way I can describe it, I was trying to muster up the courage at this point to just pick up the phone and call. Because once I made that call, again, like I said, there weren't any more excuses. And I was wondering if subconsciously I was nervous about calling and making the apology. So because of that, I was kind of subconsciously choosing not to reach out to this lady to call and get Jeremy's contact information. So I was at Celebrate Recovery one night, and I was teaching a lesson about something. And in that lesson, I mentioned a little bit about this story, and I mentioned how I had not reached out to this lady yet to get the contact information for my old friend Jeremy. And when I did that, right after I got done teaching the lesson, one of the guys that's in my step study group came up to me and said, "Dude, you've got to call. You got to call, like, immediately. You can't put it off. You're putting it off, and whether you realize it or not, this is going to go on and go on and go on and go on. How long have you been praying for some way to contact this guy? And now it's basically at your fingertips and you're stalling. You need to call. So I told this guy, look, I'll call this week. I'll follow up with you, and I will let you know, when I called, what happened, how it went, and you hold me accountable. And so he says, okay, I'll hold you accountable. So I go looking for this lady's card. My mom had given me her business card. I couldn't find it. Couldn't find her card. So now I'm like, wow, I mustered up the courage to call her to get this guy's info. And now I can't even find her number. So I'm going on Google. I'm trying to Google what I believe her name is. I wasn't quite sure how to spell her name because there's a few different spellings, and the way she spells her name is one of the more unusual ways. But ultimately, I end up finding her online. Find her number, and I call. No answer. I call and leave a message. No answer. So now I'm like, oh, great. I mustered up the oomph to make the call, and now nobody even answered. So it took a couple of days, I think, but she called back, and we had a really good talk, a long talk. We talked for probably 30 minutes, and she just kind of caught me up on the situation between her and this guy Jeremy, and they were kind of in the midst of a divorce at this point. And she was a believer. She is a believer, and we were talking about that, and she was just telling me a lot of stories about how she's been praying for this guy Jeremy, her husband. She's been praying for him. He's gone through a number of things in his life, difficult things that it's not my business to talk about, but he's been through some stuff, and his wife's been praying for him that he would come to Christ because he is not a believer, and so she tells me that she had sat down and talked to her pastor one time, and she was talking to her pastor about her husband and saying, I really want him to come to Christ, but he just doesn't seem receptive to it. And so her pastor tells her, look, it probably needs to come from someone besides you, because you guys already have kind of a damaged relationship at this point, and he's probably going to be less apt to listen to things that you say. It's just the way that it is, right? So the pastor said, it really needs to come from a friend. It needs to come from somebody else. And she's like, well, I don't know who that would be. And so her and her pastor sat down and prayed that God would bring someone into this guy Jeremy's life that he respects and that he would listen to, that would be able to share Jesus with him. And I don't remember when they prayed that, but it was at some point in the past year, I think she said. And so she thought that I could potentially be an answer to that prayer, that God was bringing me back into this guy Jeremy's life, and maybe I would be able to sow some seeds or something. So at this point, I'm pumped. I'm kind of excited. I'm like, yeah, I want to call this guy. Let's see where this goes. So she gives me his number, tells me to give him a call. I give him a call. No answer. Voicemail. I leave a message. A couple of days go by, nothing. I send a text message, and I tried to keep it very simple in the voicemail and the text message. I said, look, dude, the deal is I've got some stuff I need to say to you, and I would really appreciate you giving me a call back. I look forward to talking to you. I tried to keep it positive. I didn't want him thinking that I was calling trying to collect a debt for some old money he owed me or something like that, So I kept it simple and I kept it positive, and I just prayed that he would call me back, that he would reach back out to me. So flash forward a couple of days, I'm at the grocery store. It's a Saturday. I'm shopping. I'm over in the produce section, and my phone rings. I answer the phone. It's Jeremy. And I could tell after I answered the phone that, by the way, I said hello. and he said, "Hey, this is Jeremy. I'm calling you back." I could tell by the tone in his voice that he wasn't sure why I called, and he was a little bit apprehensive about the whole situation. So I told him how I felt extremely bad about the way our relationship ended. I took ownership of my role in that, and I apologized for the things that I said, for the things that I did, and I explained to him how I came across his number and how his wife, after all these years, ended up in my parents' house doing an appraisal. And that's how I got in touch with him. So he says, "Man, I never knew that you felt that way." He was surprised that I felt guilty about that situation that happened so long ago. He said, "Man, I haven't even really hardly thought about that. It's not anything that's that big of a deal to me anymore. And I'm surprised that it even bothers you. I had no idea that it meant that much to you, that you wanted to get a hold of me and apologize." And I said, "Yeah, it really did. This guy, in a lot of ways, treated me like a younger brother. He was a few years older than me. He stuck up for me when people would talk badly about me. He would always stand up for me and speak well of me. Um, all in all, he was a good guy. He was a really good guy. And I shouldn't have said those things that I said, even if some of them may have been true at the time." So he ends up apologizing for his role in our broken friendship, right? And I wasn't even thinking that was going to happen. I just called him to apologize, make my peace, and hopefully he forgives me. Well, he did forgive me, but on top of forgiving me, he says, "Well, you know what, Adam? A lot of that stuff, it's probably my fault. It probably wasn't even your fault, or at least I played a role in it, and I'm sorry." So we had this beautiful moment of mutual forgiveness that was going on. And unfortunately, because of COVID and everything else, it was happening over the phone. But I just think that that's a beautiful story of how we are called to make amends to people that we have wronged. And we are called to forgive people who have wronged us, right? I think that's also a great story about how the Lord answers prayer, but he does it in his time. He does it in his perfect timing. It took years and years and years and years for that prayer to get answered, of me finding some way to contact this guy, Jeremy. But God answered it. And when he answered it, he didn't hold anything back, right? He answered it. He answered it in such a way that I knew that it was him answering my prayers, right? Because again, what are the chances that my parents would have picked up the phone, and out of all the appraisers in Atlanta, what are the chances that they would have happened to have got the one who is this guy's wife? What are the chances? Astronomical, right? And then I'm so thankful that this woman, the appraiser, before she left the house, she got up the courage or whatever, to walk back in the house and say, "Hey, can I ask you a question? This is going to sound kind of weird." So I'm so thankful for all of that. So I hope you guys are uplifted and motivated by that story. What I want you guys to do this week is think about somebody that you have wronged, that you need to make an apology to. I want you to go get up the courage to make that apology. I want you to pick up the phone. I want you to give them a call if you can. Shoot them an email if that's the only way you've got to contact them. But reach out to someone that you need to apologize to. Make that apology. Make it right. Metaphorically, leave your gift there in front of the altar. Go and be reconciled to your brother or sister. Then go and offer your gift. Go and be reconciled, beloved. So I'll leave you guys with that. And until we meet again, deuces.